This podcast is brought to you by sarahraven.com, which is home to everything you need for a truly beautiful and productive garden. You'll also find great and essential gardening kit and stylish, lovely things to have in your house to bring the outside indoors, all inspired by the garden and the house being tied together. There's also plenty of garden inspiration, how-to videos and specialist growing guides. So head over to sarahraven.com today to discover even more. Welcome to Grow Cook Eat Arrange, the podcast of me and often Arthur Parkinson, who I'm very happy and jolly is with me today, because what we thought we would do as we're coming up towards Christmas, it's not right over the hill, but it's not far away now, is we would talk through the things that we think are really outstanding in our Christmas range, online and in the catalogue. And I am more excited about this Christmas range than any ever. A lot of trips for me into Europe and around the UK, sourcing things this time last year. And Arthur thinks it's our best range yet. So that is very exciting. So we thought we'd do a bit of a sort of resume of what we think is great. So hello, Arthur. How are you this morning?
Hello, Sarah. I'm very well. I'm very happy to be looking at the catalogue because I was trying to work out how many of these we've done since the podcast started. And I think this is the third or possibly even the fourth Christmas catalogue we've done together.
I think it was certainly we've been doing the podcast for 3 years. So yeah.
Yeah, so it must be the third. And yeah, you're totally right. I got sent the catalogue and I can tell that you've been like a magpie just finding all these beautiful things across Europe. Because when I text Sarah, normally in February, you are in Europe doing these huge fairs, which are massive, aren't they? Like
they are.
We all know these Christmas fairs we go to as customers, but as buyers, you have a huge like Olympic stadium you have to wade through, don't you? Like 30 different kinds of reindeers and crazy.
I know, and it feels like I've just come out of home Christmas, domestic Christmas, my own Christmas,
commercial Christmas.
Yeah, and then straight into thinking about what we're all going to want for next Christmas. But it's fun, actually. I really enjoy it. And I have this rule in these huge Christmas fairs that I have to walk very fast. I'm famously the slowest walker in the United Kingdom. I'm such a dawdler because I love looking at nature and the flowers and the bees and the butterflies and the birds. So I dawdle, even in London. I'm a terrible dawdler because I'm looking at sort of what's in the shop windows. But anyway, when I'm at one of these fairs, I go really quick because you just get bogged down and you've got to just be exactly as you say, like a magpie, that your eye is drawn to something and you have to just trust your gut because otherwise it's completely overwhelming. You know, it's just like you could get bogged down on one stand, really.
And are you allowed to take things with you, or have you got a trolley or something, or is it like you see it, you have to put your name on it and then it gets sent in like 9 months' time?
Yeah, we take a photo, or they may have photos. So we then go round with one of their reps and say, okay, these are the things we like in your range. And then, to be honest, sometimes it's quite disappointing because I may really fall for something and I try at the end of kind of a morning and then an afternoon to put in my notebook my top 3 from that whole session. So I may have seen, I don't know, 100 things, I suppose, but I really try and highlight my favorite in terms of I just think will be that are really good value and will have a huge wide appeal, or even are just absolutely exquisite that fewer people will buy because perhaps they're more expensive, but they're still worth doing. Anyway, and then unfortunately what happens is that if I've chosen something quite unusual, sometimes they just get axed because not enough of other buyers have gone for that product on that stand. And so it may be that we get sort of halfway through the year and then suddenly they say, oh no, this isn't being run. And that's so disappointing because often that's your favorite product and you've done your favorite picture of it. So then it's just like hits the bin, really, hits the edit floor. But there we are. Anyway, let's start doing our highlights. So Arthur, why don't you go first? What was the thing that drew your eye from the whole lot?
I am a sucker for red when it comes to Christmas, and you've always introduced me to lots of ponygramity themed things, actually. But I love this really classy looking ceramic ponygrammic candle holder that I think I'd have out all year round. It'd become like a little ornament somewhere. But I love it that you've got it with like this little Nordic bit of Blackpool rock looking candle out the top of it that it holds. So that's very beautiful and Moulin Rouge for me. So that's number one, kicking off my colour palette, which is often burgundy, dried hydrangeas and lots of gold. So
yeah, so that was one of my yeehaw moments when I saw that, because I actually have one of those I bought in a market in Istanbul in the souk, and I've loved it. And so when I saw that,
oh, there it is.
There it is. It was in a German fair, I think. And so, yeah, I'm crazy about that. And it's a really nice, rich red colour and holds a candle. Yeah. So for me, sort of kind of, I guess, equivalent to that as something that you could put anywhere. It could be on your Christmas table. It could be on your mantelpiece. It could be on a window ledge. Is actually the thing that I put on the front cover of the catalogue this year. And it's this striped, kind of slightly clay, kind of cafe au lait colour with a raspberry stripe vase. It's a vase. And I just love the sort of muted richness of those two colours together. And so for me, it's kind of the epitome of the soft and warm palette. And so then I just arranged that in the shoot with some alder branches, which have those wonderful little tiny, tiny mini fir cones on them, as well as catkins. And then to go with that scale, I've just gone for a selection of lots of mini baubles. And again, I remember being in Holland when I found those, and I was with our head of buying called Sam, and I fell on them, and I was like, "Oh, I love these," and she was sort of slightly mystified. But the thing I love about mini decorations is whatever size place you live in, they will fit. So, like lots of the young that I know aren't going to have a Christmas tree probably, but they want to have a feeling of Christmas from the sort of early to mid-December. And I think that works just perfectly. So as a present, if I was going to see anyone, pretty much anyone in December, I would take the mix of that vase, a few branches that I picked from the garden, and those little collections of really good value budget mini decorations, which come in different sort of greens and reds and different finishes. Some are glass and some are sort of sparkly. Anyway, so that would be my equivalent number one. And two, actually, because the decorations. So over to you, Arthur. What would be your next?
Well, something that would either be lying on a table somewhere or maybe even draped over a mirror, or as you've just described, just dancing through some very delicate branches. I love this gemstone light string that you've got.
Yeah.
And you've always been very good at finding little copper wiry stringy things. I've got various ones you've picked over the years, but this one, I just love it because it reminds me of jewellery, like something out of a almost Game of Thronesy. That's what I thought when I saw it. I thought of Lady Olenna.
Yes.
I just thought it was very mystical. And I just love things like this that you buy and every year you look forward to getting out and that are just going to light up a corner of the room, maybe a little table you've got, or as I've said, for Christmas Day, just have it through the table. You could even try having this kind of thing for a wreath on the door, perhaps, if you've got a wreath inside.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So versatile.
Yeah, I love them. And as you say, I absolutely love our basic wire lights.
Yeah.
The copper wire lights. I mean, they're just so versatile. But the ones that I chose actually in the kind of whole light department are based on tried and testing, which is that they're the Solar Allium Stake Lights. And we've actually sold them for years, but it's funny. They just sit out in the garden here from 1 month to the next, and not necessarily just around Christmas. But whenever I have people to supper or we're going to eat in the garden in the summer months, but also as you go into winter, lights are so much more important, aren't they? Because of course it gets dark at 4:30 or whatever, or earlier if you're in Scotland. And so it really, it's the time to have lights, and we'll move on to candles next. And so for me, just either side of the door, having a set of these Solar Allium Stake Lights in the pots as you go up to our back door and through the abelia by our sort of front door onto our sort of kitchen terrace. I just love them because they make it feel in 30 seconds. I can just get them out from the attic, put them down. They will charge through the day, through the first day, and then ping, as soon as it gets dark, they come, they light up, and then as soon as it gets light, they turn themselves off. And so they're really rather brilliant. So they don't need batteries, and they just come into life as soon as you want them, I think. So for me, they're rather brilliant, and just I've had them here for a very long time, so they really are road tested exceptionally well. So they would be my third choice.
Beautiful.
So shall we perhaps talk about candles then and candle holders?
Yes, because it's endless, the choice. I just love this really elegant, again, vintagey looking gold-plated glass candle holder that you've called the Sissinghurst candle holder. Comes in a set of 2, and I'm not sure if can you use it for a vase for the rest of the year? Does the top come off it? I don't know.
Gosh, I can't quite remember whether I think it does. I think
It's a
just
lovely
slots
shape
in the top. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
It's a beautiful shape, and I love how the light in that photograph is just catching on the gold ribbons going down the glass. Very elegant and warm with that candle on the top of it.
Yeah, they are. It is a lovely thing. It feels very classy and is not hugely expensive, which is one of the reasons that I fell on it. So I really love that. And actually, I'm taking us away from candles, but definitely sort of into a table decoration. I really fell on these whopper glass fruit decorations. And to be honest, I've been slightly obsessed by fruit and vegetables, I don't know, on the Christmas tree for 20 years. And one year we only had these ones that I'd bought in Denmark, and they were quite expensive each one. And then the Christmas tree fell over and lots of them broke.
I didn't put that Christmas tree up, by the way.
No, it wasn't your fault, Arthur. And it was just this terrible moment where it was like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but then it actually collapsed.
It was awful. It was dreadful.
And anyway, so I'm always on the lookout to replace some, but I really loved these because they're bigger. So they're bigger than those standard Christmas tree baubles. They're kind of almost 2 or 3 times the size. And the reason I selected them is that I love just putting really classy decorations into a pretty bowl and having that on a hall table or even on your dining room table before you've actually gone fully into Christmas. And so for me, there's a very beautiful hand-painted Soleil bowl, which we found in the Netherlands, I think. And I would just fill that with the whopper glass fruit decorations. And, throughout December, that would be my standard sort of table decoration. And then over actual Christmas, or if I had people to sup or whatever, I would fill the bowl with water, keep the decorations in it, and I would just float a few flowers of, for instance, cabea, or something really late flowering like a Rudbeckia or perhaps an echinacea, which often here we get the odd flower until Christmas. So that would be a sort of table decoration-y type thing, but, not necessarily just candles. And I mean, I know your next one is based on the table too, isn't it?
Yes. I think I picked these last year, but they are so stylish. And as anybody who is a fan of Christmas crackers will know, you do have to shop around for a beautiful Christmas cracker these days. And I think these partridge ones are so charming. They look like they've been hand-painted with a lovely French partridge perching amongst the pear boughs. And where I live, I'm lucky because I see French partridges as it gets towards autumn because the poor things are released. But the rest of the year, I see the native grey partridges, and they're so sweet. They live in little coveys. So I'm very fond of partridges, and I love that Christmas carol. So I just think these are so lovely to have on the table. And they're the kind of thing that once they're pulled, I'll probably be finding them and smoothing them back out and keeping them for something. I don't know what, probably gift tags for next year or something like that.
One of your
they're too nice to chuck away.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so then sort of decorations wise, I've actually got 2 things that I would use together, I think, which is I remember really well walking in with a great friend of mine, Deborah Needleman, in Manhattan to one of the most wonderful interior shops in the world, I think, called John Derrian. And it was just before Christmas, so it was kind of maybe early December. And the whole of the roof of his shop was full of these luminous, beautiful, beautiful, really massive paper hanging decorations, those sort of honeycomb paper decorations. And I was so obsessed by them and have been sort of collecting them ever since, really, including vintage ones. Because for me, my Christmas is always harping back in a slightly nostalgic way to my aunt, who was called Aunt Fortune, who lived in what was then called Westmoreland, is now called Cumbria. And she put on the most beautiful Christmas. And she had this massive white Christmas tree in the middle of her hall, and she covered it with these beautiful honeycomb decorations. And then all through the hall, she had loads of these sort of hanging. Anyway, so I was very much, when I was in Europe after Christmas, buying for this range, looking for things like that. But the thing that I found with my older ones, my vintagey ones, is that they tear really easily. So I was very much on the lookout for something with more robust paper, not tissue paper, but more like moving towards card, or certainly a sort of, like a chunky Conqueror type proper paper. And I found these, and I love them because they fold away to literally you can just slide them in a drawer or put them in the bottom of the container that's got your Christmas decks in and put them in the attic. So they become literally almost invisible, but then they unravel into these great glamour queens. And so they come in various different shapes and sizes in a beautiful, soft, kind of olivey green and a really, really rich crimson. So I'm dead chuffed with those, and I'm going to fill our little house in London where we're going to be spending Christmas with those from the roof. And actually in the catalogue, they're shot in the hallway there. So they look just like I'm going to put them back up.
And they fold away, don't they, Sarah? So they're very good for storing, aren't they?
Yeah.
If you've got a small house.
That's the thing.
Have big boxes full of Christmas decks. These, you can put them in little drawers. And
that's the thing. They're really, really good for that. And they just give you glamour from not great expense. And they are truly sustainable because they're made from card and they will last. They will really last. And you?
Well, I think this would be the thing out of everything that I'd pick, because I'm a sucker for a bauble. And I love the title of this, As If from Venice. And for someone who's never been to Venice but is surrounded by things that often look like Venice that I get from various places, this suits me. And I think it's absolutely stunning. It reminds me of the neck of a peacock, but it's got the shimmer of a tortoise's shell. Beautiful. Is it a silver background, and then there's blobs of emerald green?
Yeah.
And you get them in a set of 4, which I think is always lovely with baubles, because it's nice to ping pong the same one through something. And like you, I'm not somebody who does the Christmas tree every year. Last year we just had a branch Christmas tree, which is lovely because baubles can then kind of breathe within the branches, whereas in fir they do tend to get suffocated a little bit. You have to place them with more thought, whereas branches you can just dangle them on and they hang and they've got air around them. And I just think this is absolutely stunning, and you'd never think it was a newly bought decoration. You'd think, oh, who did you get that? Who did you inherit that from? So you can fool people. I like things like that.
Yeah,
so As If from Venice, green bauble, set of 4, lovely.
Really nice, really nice. And my next one is very functional again, very nostalgic for me, which is it reminds me of decorating the school classroom for Christmas, which is a concertina paper garland. And I really went for those this year. I've gone for sort of little tiny ones with red dots, little sort of discs, and cream and gold ones. But the one that I really love is the white paper garland, which is, it forms a proper kind of chunky thing, like a sort of rugby player's arm in diameter. And I just really like those. They're just so simple. Again, they literally fold away to nothing, so you can just put them in a drawer or put them in the attic. But they are very traditional and, again, very sustainable, very pretty, quite affordable. And for me, they tick lots of boxes. So I was very keen on that. We wanted to make this very sustainable. So you'll find there isn't glitter or all that kind of stuff that can drop off and be a microplastic and contaminate our world. Everything's quite pure. And that, for me, is a really good example.
Beautiful. I'm going back to the Christmas tree with another bauble.
Good.
Because you've managed to find a bee that looks like a jolly fat bee. Quite often they look like wasps.
Yes.
When they're being designed. I think the poor designers, maybe they're not familiar with lovely big fat mama queen bumblebees. But this one, while all the bumblebees in the garden are asleep, you can hang this up and and think of the lovely bees. And again, a set of 4, so that's nice. And I love our classic snowdrop bauble, which is glass with just the snowdrop against the glass. And this is the same design. So you get the illustration really comes up beautifully against the glass. So very, very beautiful.
Yeah. And they're simple, but got the good message, haven't they?
Yeah.
So my next one is moving to a sort of different area, really, which is I really wanted to expand our range of real plants, potted plants, for Christmas. Once the garden sort of starts the colour goes and the flowers go, I can't bear to wait until spring to have things inside. And so the thyme and rosemary in the terracotta pots for me were an absolute must-have. And they're brilliant because they're in these little terracotta pots, which you can put with candles between. But we actually kept those going as table centre pots right the way through in the greenhouse, right the way through until now. And so they've done fantastically. And then now they've got a bit pot bound and we're going to plant them in the garden. So I think those are a bit of a winner for somebody with a window box, that they can have them inside and you can send them as a present at Christmas or have them yourself. And then you can plant them on a balcony or in a window box or in your garden.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I love the fact that there's something that can be planted out once they're done. And the idea of getting that as a box, as a present, and the smell coming out of the box, how lovely.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, they're great.
That kind of brings me on to one of my picks, which is also alive, because these are also in terracotta pots, but the snowdrops. I can't believe you've managed to get them, and there'll be a sellout, because I couldn't think of anything more thoughtful to buy somebody than snowdrops that, again, can be planted in the garden once they've finished and come back year on year. But it's amazing, Sarah, the amount of alive stuff in this catalogue to say it's Christmas. I mean, can you tell us about how Rookery are managing this whole new side of the business? Because it didn't used to look like this, the Christmas catalogue, at all.
Yeah. No, well, because we've got our own nursery now, it just gives us all much more flexibility in doing what we want in a way. We haven't got to pre-buy them from another supplier. And it just means that, so, you know, one of my next choices is the Paperwhites and the Leaf Trough. Well, it just means that, yeah, you know, I can find a trough planter that I really love, and then I can get bulbs and I can marry the two. So, you know, we've sold things like that in the past for people to do themselves. And we've certainly, one of our best sellers for years is in the willow planter, the Paperwhites. But it was you, actually, I think, who really drew my attention to the fact that the leaf trough is just such a beautiful thing. And so last Christmas, I did a big leaf trough as a base. And then in a wedding cake tiered thing, I had a smaller one inside it. And then I just put Paperwhites and then silver birch. But anyway, the picture is just of the base one. But it just worked so well. And that is actually in our spare room, which we keep cool. And that honestly did flower for 5 weeks, which I know people are going to say, oh no, but it's one of those things that you really want to put out on the doorstep when you go to bed rather than leaving it in a centrally heated house, because Paperwhites are very temperature sensitive. And if you see them growing in the wild, they'll flower for 8 weeks, at least 8 to 10 weeks. And that's what you want to try and get, is really keep them cool overnight and only have them in the centrally heated house when you're actually looking at them. So if you do that, they're just so worth it. And these come out in the leaf trough and already planted in our peat-free compost, which we've trialed for years over, to see that everything does well. But yeah, I'm really, really proud of those. And the other thing, and now we've got onto that, Arthur, is I just want to talk about our cut flower range, because I am somebody who historically, with Christmas courses and things, have headed up to the market at Nine Elms to buy big wraps of things that I can then take to wherever I'm spending Christmas. So I might buy, I don't know, lilies or amaryllis or anemones or whatever. And then quite often I've spent Christmas up in Scotland, on the west coast of Scotland. And so I've really got to get things that I can put in a box, drive for at least a day or maybe 2 days, and that they will then still last over Christmas and New Year. So I've done the road testing of what really, really works. And so I've longed to introduce a range of cut flowers that I know are really reliable through winter. And they're not a rip-off, and they're not going to die immediately. Like if you buy roses from Kenya, I find they've gone over between Christmas and New Year so quickly. Anyway, hyacinths are absolutely stellar in this department. And I particularly love Miss Saigon, which is the purple one, but we're doing a purple, a pink, and a white. And then you'll get fragrance as well. And the key thing is not to cut the section of white bulb off when they arrive. You need to leave that on because that really makes a difference to the vase life. And the other key thing is to put a little drop of vinegar or a squirt of vinegar or a drop of bleach into the water because they have got very chunky stems which do tend to get botrytis. So you just want to do that. But then they really will, we'll send them out just before Christmas. They'll last over Christmas and into the new year, and they're really, really good value. And we've got lots of things like olive branches, which again, I know last. I've tried and tested them. Amaryllis with the canes inserted into the hollow stem. I know they'll last. And so I've really gone quite big on sort of things that you can't get in the colours that you can't get widely in the supermarket or whatever. So they really are adding to the range of Christmas flowers that I would really vouch for.
No, you've done amazingly well. I mean, there's stuff in this catalogue that you would only find, and you'd have to go to several very classy upmarket garden centres and farm shops to find, and you've grouped it all together. I mean, we can go from fresh to dried flowers quickly, because you've even managed to find dried hydrangeas, which I famously on my Instagram, I'm always banging on about cutting and drying, but you can buy them directly from you. And if the bunches are like the photograph, which are beautiful coloured dried hydrangeas, and then you can buy the wreath as well, the burgundy and silver wreath that will last forever. I mean, amazing what you've managed to find. And it's nice that you're finding suppliers that are obviously listening to what people want, which is going back to sustainable and stuff from the garden.
Yeah, and the all the dry flowers, they're sourced and made up in the UK. And I've actually still got that wreath that I shot on that door in my London house. In February, March, I can't remember the exact date. It's still hanging there, and it still looks great. So, should we do one last one, Arthur, each?
Yes, then we'll call it a day from shopping because we've spent all our money.
Yeah. So maybe my last one, I think, would be in our gift range, and that's another thing that I really wanted to build up, which is if I'm going to stay with someone, or if I want to just post out a present to someone that I'm not going to see, then it's really nice to get something a bit unusual that you won't, that just stands out. And for me, the 3-jug happy stripe gift set, which is these 3 really jolly, perfectly sort of good value, little, almost like milk jug size, which are fabulous for flowers in any season. So I used them this year with really delicate narcissus right up to dahlias in the autumn. And it's called the Happy Stripe gift set. And I'm certainly going to be sending that as a present to several people. But I feel proud of our gift range. I mean, we worked really hard on it. And it's sent out with lovely tissue paper, a heliochrysum, straw flower or 2 in each one with lovely ribbon. And so, it's a pleasure to open as well as to get the contents. So, I love it.
Well, I'm going to finish with a gift as well. And it's the calendar, actually, that I always buy for my mum and my grandma Sheila. And it's lovely to walk through the door when I get to Nottingham and see the calendar in 2 very important places for me. But I got quite emotional because upstairs in what was my room, which is now the spare room of my mum's cottage, Jill has saved literally, I think it must be 10 years worth of the calendar. So it was so nice to see, and they're all spread out. And she just says, I can't bear to throw them away because they are so beautiful. But the photos are beautiful, and the tips are really useful, tips for the garden, and then a recipe every month. And it's a big calendar, which I think is important because quite often the little calendars, they just don't give you that impact. So the calendar is a very worthy present, I think. So that's my Christmas shopping done.
Fabulous. Well, really lovely choices, really lovely things, and I'm incredibly proud of it. So I hope you all have a nice time having a look at it and see some things that you might want to buy. So thanks, Arthur. That was a really nice selection. Thanks so much for listening to Grow Cookie to Range with me, Sarah Raven, and my long-standing podcast partner, Arthur Parkinson. Next week, as we head towards Christmas, I wanted to highlight one of my favourite cookbooks for this time of year, actually, which is the new Ottolenghi cookbook called Comfort. And it has just got wonderful recipes in it that bring you comfort. And it's written by Yotam as well as Helen Go, Verena Lochmuller and Tara Wigley. And Tara has been to Perthshire quite a few times now to do demonstrations and talk through the Ottolenghi way of eating. And I'm really looking forward to being with her again and being with her colleagues. And we're going to talk through delicious things to eat at this time of year. So, see you then. You can find more information, photos and advice sheets on all the plants and recipes we talk about on this podcast by heading to the show notes or at sarahraven.com/podcast.